The morning sun spilled across the manicured lawns of Willow Creek, a pristine upscale neighborhood where every house gleamed with pride and every driveway held a story. Darius Coleman stood on his porch, coffee mug in hand, inhaling the crisp air. At 34, he was a man who had clawed his way to this moment. Years of grinding, saving, and dreaming had landed him here, in a home he could call his own. The quiet hum of suburbia was his reward, a sanctuary he'd built from sheer will. But lately, something was off. His Wi-Fi, usually lightning fast, had been crawling for weeks. At first, he chalked it up to too many devices, his laptop, phone, smart TV, but the lag persisted, gnawing at his patience. Yesterday, he'd decided enough was enough. He logged into his router, expecting to find a simple fix. What he found instead was a stranger, a device he didn't recognize, leeching off his network like a parasite. Darius wasn't one to overreact. He sipped his coffee, his dark eyes scanning the street as he replayed the moment in his mind. The device had been labeled K. Whitmore PC. Karen Whitmore. His neighbor. The woman with the perfectly styled blonde hair, the entitled sneer, and a reputation for treating the neighborhood like her personal kingdom. They'd barely spoken since he moved in 6 months ago, save for a curt nod at a homeowners association meeting. Yet here she was, brazenly using his Wi-Fi. Annoyance flared in his chest, but he stayed calm. He changed the password, locked her out, and figured that was the end of it. A minor inconvenience, nothing more. He couldn't have known that simple act would ignite a firestorm, exposing a truth far darker than stolen internet. The porch creaked as Darius leaned against the railing, savoring the morning's peace. He was a man who valued control, over his space, his life, his future. Growing up, he'd seen too many people lose everything to chaos. Not him. He'd built this life brick by brick, and no one, not even a nosy neighbor, was going to disrupt it. But as he took another sip of coffee, the tranquility shattered. A figure stormed across his lawn, heels clicking against the pavement with furious purpose. Karen Whitmore. Her face was a mask of rage, her arms crossed tightly over her designer sweater. She didn't knock, didn't pause, didn't even acknowledge the boundary of his property. She just stopped a few feet away, glaring like he'd personally insulted her entire existence. "Did you change your Wi-Fi password?" she snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. Darius blinked, caught off guard. He set his mug down slowly, studying her. Karen was in her late 40s, with the kind of polished look that screamed privilege, hair sprayed into submission, nails manicured to perfection, and an air of superiority that clung to her like perfume. He'd seen her type before, the kind who assumed the world owed them everything. But this? This was next-level audacity. "Yeah, I did," he said, keeping his tone even. "Why?" Karen's face flushed a deep crimson, her lips pursing as if she'd bitten into something sour. "Because my internet stopped working. I've been using that connection for months, and now I can't do anything." The words hit Darius like a slap. She wasn't even trying to hide it. She was admitting, proudly, defiantly, that she'd been stealing from him. He raised an eyebrow, his voice low but laced with disbelief. "You've been stealing my Wi-Fi?" Karen scoffed, rolling her eyes as if the accusation was beneath her. "Stealing? Oh, please. It's just the internet. You people always make a big deal out of nothing. It's not like it costs you anything extra." "You people?" Darius repeated, his voice hardening. He took a step forward, his 6-foot frame casting a shadow across the porch. "And let's be clear, it's my Wi-Fi. I pay for it. I don't owe you access." That was the match that lit the fuse. Karen's face twisted into something ugly, her eyes narrowing with venom. "Oh, I see what's going on here," she hissed, pointing a manicured finger at him. "You don't belong in this neighborhood, and now you're trying to play games with the people who actually do. I'm calling the police." Darius froze, not out of fear but sheer astonishment. "The police? Over a Wi-Fi password?" He watched, almost detached, as Karen whipped out her phone and dialed 911 with the confidence of someone who'd done this before. Her voice shifted, morphing into a performance of panic and vulnerability. "There's a suspicious man in my neighborhood," she said, her tone trembling with fake distress. "He's trying to hack into people's homes. He's harassing me right now. I feel threatened." The smirk she shot Darius as she spoke was pure malice. She thought she had him. She thought she could wield her privilege like a weapon, summoning the system to bend to her will. But Karen had no idea who she was dealing with. Darius wasn't just a homeowner in Willow Creek. He was a cybersecurity analyst, a man who spent his days untangling digital webs and exposing hidden truths. And he wasn't about to let this woman's lies unravel his life. As Karen continued her theatrical performance for the 911 operator, Darius shook his head, a slow smile tugging at his lips. "You really think this is gonna go your way?" he said, almost to himself. Karen ignored him, her smirk widening. She thought she was untouchable. She thought the world would always tilt in her favor. But Darius had learned long ago that the truth, when wielded properly, was sharper than any lie. He turned and walked back inside, leaving Karen to her charade. The police were coming, and he was ready. Inside, Darius sat at his desk, his mind racing but focused. He wasn't panicked, far from it. If anything, he was curious. Karen's desperation over a Wi-Fi password didn't add up. Why was she so brazen? Why risk this kind of confrontation? Something told him there was more to her story, something buried in the digital footprints she'd left on his network. He opened his laptop and pulled up his router's connection history, his fingers moving with the precision of a surgeon. The logs loaded, and what he saw sent a chill down his spine. At first, it was mundane: streaming, social media, online shopping. But as he dug deeper, the picture grew darker. Karen's device had been visiting extremist forums, cesspools of hate speech and conspiracy theories. Under anonymous usernames, she'd posted rants about minorities, immigrants, and anyone she deemed beneath her. She'd doxed people she didn't like, sharing their addresses and phone numbers with gleeful malice. Darius's jaw tightened as he scrolled through the venom, each post more vile than the last. But that wasn't the worst of it. Buried in the data were encrypted transactions, hundreds of them, linked to fraudulent activities. Someone, likely Karen, had been running scams, selling stolen goods through shady online marketplaces. There were traces of identity theft, credit card numbers processed through dark websites. Darius leaned back, exhaling sharply. This woman wasn't just a nuisance. She was a criminal, hiding behind her suburban facade while committing felonies on his network, probably thinking it would shield her from scrutiny. Then he found the final nail in her coffin, a login attempt to a site flagged for trafficking explicit material. His stomach churned. If the authorities dug into her browsing history, there was no telling what else they'd uncover. Darius's hands moved quickly, saving screenshots and logs onto a USB drive. Karen had called the police to intimidate him, but she'd made a fatal mistake. She'd brought the spotlight to her own crimes. The wail of sirens cut through the afternoon air, pulling Darius from his thoughts. He stepped outside, the USB drive tucked in his pocket, as a patrol car rolled into his driveway. Two officers emerged: Officer Jordan, a tall, composed black man with a steady gaze, and Officer Miller, his shorter, stockier white partner, whose expression was unreadable. Karen, still standing in Darius's yard, sprang into action, rushing toward them with a performance worthy of an Oscar. "Officers, thank God you're here," she wailed, her voice quivering with manufactured fear. She pointed a trembling finger at Darius. "That man, he's been hacking into my devices. I think he's stealing personal information from the whole neighborhood. I don't feel safe." Officer Jordan raised an eyebrow, his gaze shifting between Karen's theatrics and Darius's calm demeanor. "Ma'am, slow down. What exactly happened?" Karen sucked in a shaky breath, clutching her chest like a damsel in distress. "I was just sitting in my home, minding my own business, when my internet stopped working. I realized he must have hacked into my network. Then, when I confronted him, he got aggressive. He threatened me and refused to fix what he did. I knew I had to call you before he did something worse. Officer Miller glanced at Darius, who stood on his porch, arms crossed, looking almost amused. Sir, Miller said, what's your side of the story? Darius sighed, gesturing toward Karen. This woman has been stealing my Wi-Fi for months. I changed my password this morning, and she showed up at my door demanding I give her access again. When I refused, she lost it and called you. Miller let out a short, skeptical chuckle. Wait, she called the police because you changed your own Wi-Fi password? Karen's head snapped toward Miller, her face twisting with indignation. It's more than that. He's been hacking. He's probably doing illegal things online. You need to check his devices before it's too late. Officer Jordan took out his notepad, his expression neutral but his eyes sharp. All right, let's slow down here. Karen, you're saying you believe Darius is hacking into your devices. Do you have any proof? Karen hesitated, her confidence faltering for the first time. Well, no, but, and Darius, Jordan continued, you're saying she's been using your internet without permission? Darius nodded. And I can prove it. The officers exchanged a glance. Karen's story was already unraveling, and now the accused was offering evidence. Jordan gestured toward the house. All right, let's see what you've got. Karen's smirk faded, a flicker of unease crossing her face. She'd assumed the police would take her side, as they always had in her mind. But this wasn't going her way. Darius led the officers inside, Karen trailing reluctantly behind, her bravado dimming with every step. She stood near the doorway, her arms crossed tightly, like a predator cornered but still dangerous. Darius plugged in the USB drive and pulled up the files, his voice steady as he explained. I took a look at my router's history. Karen's been using my Wi-Fi for a while, and the sites she's been visiting, let's just say they're not exactly legal. Officer Jordan and Miller leaned in as the screen lit up with evidence. The logs were damning, transactions linked to fraudulent websites, messages from extremist forums dripping with racist bile, and that chilling login attempt to an illegal site. Miller let out a low whistle. Jesus! Karen went pale, her voice rising to a shriek. That's not mine. He's making this up. Darius didn't even glance at her. Karen, your IP address is right here. You were using my connection, remember? That means everything you did online was logged under my network. Officer Jordan folded his arms, his gaze piercing. So, let me get this straight. You've been piggybacking off his Wi-Fi without permission, and now you're saying he somehow fabricated all this? Karen's mouth opened and closed, her words failing her. It's a setup. He's some kind of hacker. I told you he was dangerous. Darius turned to her, a slow smirk forming. Karen, you called the cops on me thinking I'd get in trouble. But all you did was bring them straight to your crimes. Officer Jordan exhaled, looking unimpressed. Karen, I have to say, this isn't looking good for you. Miller nodded, his tone grim. Yeah, and you know what? I think we need to dig a little deeper into what else you've been doing. Karen's panic erupted into desperation. No, this isn't fair. He's the criminal. In a blind rage, she lunged at Darius, her manicured nails aiming for his face. Before she could connect, Miller caught her wrist, twisting her arm behind her back. That's assault on top of everything else, he said coolly. Karen let out a strangled scream. You can't do this. I'm the victim. You don't understand. Jordan took out his radio, his voice steady. Dispatch, we have a suspect in custody. Requesting backup for further investigation. Karen's breath hitched, her eyes wild. Suspect? No, wait, you don't understand. Darius crossed his arms, watching as reality crashed down on her. "Oh, we understand just fine." But Karen wasn't done. Her desperation morphed into something feral. "You lying thug," she shrieked, thrashing against Miller's grip. "You think you can do this to me? I'm a white woman. You think anyone's going to believe him over me?" The room froze. Even Miller, who'd been calm, stiffened. Darius felt a familiar weight settle in his chest, the sting of those words, the history they carried. But before he could respond, Karen did the unthinkable. She turned to Officer Jordan, her eyes blazing with hatred, and spat directly in his face. The silence was deafening. Jordan wiped his face slowly, his jaw tight, his hand hovering near his cuffs. He'd seen racism before, but this was raw, unfiltered malice. Miller shook his head, his voice dripping with disgust. "Well, congratulations, Karen. You just turned a bad situation into the worst day of your life." Jordan didn't flinch. He pulled out his handcuffs, his voice like steel. "Karen Whitmore, you're under arrest for assaulting an officer, cybercrime, and fraud." Karen lost what little composure she had left. "No. You can't do this," she screeched, kicking wildly as the officers restrained her. "I'm the victim. You can't do this to me." Darius watched as they hauled her outside, her screams piercing the air. Neighbors had gathered, phones out, filming the spectacle. "Get your hands off me!" Karen wailed, twisting in their grip. "He's the real criminal." Her words were cut off as Jordan shut the patrol car door. Miller shook his head, glancing at Darius. "She just never knew when to quit, huh?" Darius chuckled, the tension easing from his shoulders. "Nope. But I'd say she finally ran out of luck." Jordan sighed, his expression softening as he turned to Darius. "You handled that better than most people would have." Darius shrugged. "Honestly, I was just waiting for karma to do its thing." Jordan smirked. "Well, looks like karma had some backup today." By the next morning, Karen Whitmore's name was everywhere. The headlines screamed across news outlets: "Racist woman arrested after attacking black neighbor over Wi-Fi, shocking cybercrime evidence found." The footage, Karen's screams, her spitting at Jordan, the arrest, went viral, shared and dissected across social media. She wasn't just a neighborhood menace anymore. She was a national disgrace. The Homeowners Association didn't waste time. At an emergency meeting, they voted unanimously to ban Karen from Willow Creek. Her house, once her pride and joy, became a financial albatross. With legal fees piling up and no community support, foreclosure loomed. Karen's world, built on entitlement and manipulation, had crumbled. Darius, meanwhile, reclaimed his peace. One evening, he sat on his porch, coffee in hand, the Wi-Fi humming smoothly. No leeches, no harassment, no Karen. His phone buzzed with a text from a friend: "Bro, you're a legend." "She really thought she could get away with that," Darius laughed, shaking his head. "She thought she was untouchable," he muttered. "Guess she found out otherwise." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold, Darius took a deep breath. The quiet was his again. Justice had been served, and for the first time in a long time, it was a damn good day.